Howdy, welcome back to Wobble Enjoy Sports. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider to like the content and subscribe to the channel. But if you're a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. I got a little bit of energy and inspiration to come in and wake up a little bit early and shoot these videos. I had to talk about one game in particular, which comes up right after this. Let's talk about round number 24 in the 2025 NRL season. Round 24 starts on Thursday night. Penrith versus Melbourne. This is at CommBank Stadium. Penrith, they are $1.50 favourites. At the Melbourne Storm, they are $2.60. The Panthers, they are looking for their 10th win in a row this Thursday against arguably their biggest rival in the NRL. Arguably. The Melbourne Storm, they came off a victory against the Brisbane Broncos the week before, but you could say that that victory was sealed up about halfway through that first half for those obvious reasons with injuries to the Brisbane Broncos. The team list for the Panthers, they are unchanged after last weekend's high-scoring victory against the Newcastle Knights. It's rare that you see the Penrith Panthers actually get close to 50. They put on 48 on the Newcastle Knights. And for the Melbourne Storm, Nick Meaney moves to fullback. There's an ongoing issue with Ryan Papenhuyzen. It is a concussion this week. So Ryan Papenhuyzen is out. Their centres are Joe Chan and Marion Seve. Marion Seve in the New South Wales Cup, I think it's New South Wales Cup, has been rocking some sort of pair of glasses because of an eye injury sustained over a month or so ago. But he's been playing with some glasses. Has Marion Seve. The forward pack is unchanged. The interchange reads Pezzett, McDonald, Kamikamitha and Lasati, with Nelson Asofa-Solomona named in the reserves. Penrith Panthers, if they win, they become an outside chance of finishing second. For the Melbourne Storm, if they win, they keep their minor premiership hopes alive. They've got a much better for and against than anybody else in the competition at the moment, considering what happened to the Dolphins for and against this past weekend. But I got to say, and I can't help it if I am, because I don't know if I'm coming across as biased or unconscious bias, but I'm really not impressed. I'm really not overawed by the Melbourne Storm these days. I know that's something that I've been harping on about for the better part of 6 weeks or so, but even in last week's performance, I'd still say that the Brisbane Broncos were probably the better team. It's just that the execution at times let them down, errors let them down, but everything else, the Broncos were able to make headway downfield. They were able to just restrict Melbourne Storm with only 15 players fit, 14 players fit for a period, and restrict them to 22 points to 2. I've been hearing, look, I'll say it, I heard bloke in a bar say that they were impressed by what the Melbourne Storm did. I have to disagree with that statement. I don't think they looked all that good. Sure, Harry Grant had himself a banger again. Stefano Utuikamanu had himself a great game. That's now 3 weeks in a row, I'd say, that he's really looked like a player that's gone down to the Melbourne Storm and found his extra gear. So congratulations to Big Steph. But honestly, I just don't see it. They are there to be beaten. The Melbourne Storm for sure. And yes, they've got their injuries. They've got Jerome Hughes out for sure. But this Penrith Panthers side, without Isaiah Yeo, it must be stated as well. So they're coming into the game not 100% themselves, but you'd definitely be resting someone like Isaiah Yeo just before the finals. And this isn't, my tip is not based around how much I dislike Melbourne. I'm genuinely thinking that Penrith Panthers can pull off the victory. However, there is something to be said about the Raiders. Everyone was saying, well, they want a loss before finals, don't they? the Raiders, surely, that they're due one. Panthers, they're on a nine-game win streak. They've got Melbourne, they've got Canberra, they've got Bulldogs over the next 3 weeks. So there may not be, but there might be a loss coming over the next month or so against one of these top four or other top four teams as well. It's awesome that we get to see so many infighting within that top four over the next month or so. I'm going to tip the Penrith Panthers because I just don't trust the Melbourne Storm defense at the moment. They kept Broncos to 2, but you take out their halves, of course, they're not going to go as well. I'm going to go the Penrith Panthers to win this game 1-12, but there's just a voice in the back of my head that's saying, you've just spoken so negatively about the Melbourne Storm that the Melbourne Storm might actually go to CommBank this Thursday night and get the victory at $2.60. That's actually a fair bit of value about the Melbourne Storm at $2.60, but I'm going to tip the Penrith Panthers to win this one 1-12. Friday night football, there are 2 matches. Match number 1 is from Go Media Stadium. The Warriors host the St. George Illawarra Dragons. Wars are $1.52. The Dragons, they are $2.54. And that is some value about the Dragons as well. Both these sides met earlier on this year at the Gong. It was the Warriors who won by 1 point in the end. The Dragons, they are somewhat a bogey side for the New Zealand Warriors. They have won over half of their games ever played. The Dragons, they are definitely a bogey side for the Warriors. For the team list now, we've got, what have we got? We've got Tane Tuapiki that's at fullback. Tanner Boyd and Harris Tavita have been named in the halves. The forward pack is Halasima, Niokore and Clark. It is Kirk Capewell who is out due to injury. Tamade Martin is also out due to concussion, and the interchange reads Healy, Eremaya Tova, Varmaga and Tanner Stowers-Smith. And they're shifting into the St. George Illawarra Dragons. Moses Sully is out. Therefore, Hayden Buchanan comes in to partner Matt Feengai in the centres. Sloan and Allen are the wings, and the forward pack, Leilua, Stewart and DeBellin is the back row. Little, Molo, Sele and Pacifici Tonga are thereabouts as well. I give the Dragons a massive sniff. The Warriors are on a 3-game losing streak. They lost against the Bulldogs in torrential rain. There are some concerns, but just because of the force of the rain and the weather that they had to play in. The Bulldogs had to play in the same thing, didn't they? But I'm willing to look past that in particular one. It's really this one that they need to get. Wade Egan is also back in the fold as well. He starts at hooker for the Warriors. I am going to say that the Warriors' losing streak comes to an end this Friday night. I think the Dragons can definitely do it, but I'm going to tip the Warriors in this one 1-12. From Allianz on Friday night, it is the Sydney Roosters hosting the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. The Roosters, they are $2.10, whereas the Bulldogs, they are $1.74 favourites for the Sydney Roosters. Siwa Wong is out due to concussion. I hope he gets well ASAP. That was a nasty head clash. The interchange has Steep, Fiketti, Iowelu and Spencer Lenu. And that's just about it for the Sydney Roosters. For the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, they look like that they have named an unchanged lineup. However, Toby Sexton and Connor Tracy, they have been named on the reserves, I should say, with Reed Marnie pulling up anchor in jersey number 17 off of the interchange. So preference is Bailey Hayward at the moment. The Bulldogs, pretty impressive in the wet last weekend. Very, very controlled. Sydney Roosters went absolutely berserk, but I can't help but feel that that is more of a story, not to take anything away from East. I can't help but feel that that is more of a story about the Dolphins and how much maybe the air has come out of the balloon for the Dolphins in 2025. These two sides met earlier this year in a cracking game. The Roosters nearly got them, but the Bulldogs pipped them right at the end. And if it's anything like the previous encounter, this one should be a banger. This one really should be a great contest. It'll be interesting to see how the Dogs come up against this Sydney Roosters side defensively. The Dolphins, they're no slouches defensively, but the Roosters absolutely torched them last weekend. And whereas the Bulldogs, they're arguably the best defensive team in the competition. But over the past month or so, who have the Bulldogs beaten? So they've lost to the West Tigers. They leaked 28 points there. They did smash Manly. They only just scraped by St. George Illawarra Dragons. They did keep Cowboys to 8. So it's still, like, technically the Bulldogs defense is top 5, I think even top 3 at the moment. But it does seem like that the defense has dropped off a bit. That it is a little bit wavy at the moment. They're leaking 28 to Tigers. They're keeping the Manly Seagulls to 4. They kept the Warriors to 14. So it's a little bit wavy. So it's going to be really interesting to see what this Bulldogs defense will be like against the Sydney Roosters side that, if it is firing on all cylinders, are going to go really close to beating the Bulldogs. However, such was the magnitude of the Bulldogs' performance last weekend. I'm going to tip the Bulldogs to win this game 1-12 in a classic. Shifting it in Super Saturday, and match number 1 is from Shark Park. Cronulla host the Gold Coast. The Sharkies, they are $1.37. The Gold Coast Titans, they are $3.11. And I think you want to get on the Gold Coast Titans now if you're having a think about flirting with the Titans this weekend. I think that's going to come in as the week progresses, because what are you doing, Cronulla Sharks? What are you doing? I know you've got a couple of injuries now. Jesse Ramian is out this weekend, therefore Hiroti comes in and plays centre, with Talakai being the other centre. But I tipped this team to not just be grand finalists. I tipped this team to win the comp at the start of the year. And I thought, well, they took it to Penrith in Las Vegas. That was pretty good. And then they put a half together against South Sydney at Shark Park. That looked like, oh my God, they're here. That's what we've been waiting for. And really, since then, they have not looked like a top 4 side at all. And it's compounded by a loss to the St. George Illawarra Dragons. No disrespect to the Dragons, who are a really tough side, a really, really tough side to beat in 2025. But this Shark side on paper, like, legit, I know games are not won on paper, but seriously, all the ingredients were there. And the halves are just not working at the moment. And their season really did start to decline when KL Iro was ruled out for just about the rest of the season, about 10 weeks or so ago. Now, he might be due, he might return in the second last or last week of the home and away regular season, potentially. But don't hold your breath on that one. But without KL Iro, I mean, they have just plummeted. It's been so disappointing to see. And if you're a Sharks fan, I mean, it would be just hair-pulling stuff, right? But, man, what have you done? Like, what has happened? What are you doing? You're still an outside chance to feature in grand finals if you activate properly. But it just doesn't look like it's going to happen for him this year. And then the next season, it's pretty much the same squad. And my fear is that because it's going to be pretty much the same squad in 2026, everyone's going to have you figured out. And then you might be resting on your laurels. You may not have changed your game plan. You may not come out with the same intensity, and everyone's going to have you figured out, Cronulla. So you've got to figure it out really, really quick, because you're on the precipice of missing the top 8 altogether. You're only 1 win in front of the Dolphins and the Sydney Roosters. You lose this weekend, and the Roosters and Dolphins win their respective matches. You are just about, well, you're equal 8th, but you're also technically equal 9th as well. And the Roosters and Dolphins both have a better for and against than you. So actually, you might be looking on the outside in, or from the outside in, if you lose this weekend and a couple of results go against you. For the Gold Coast Titans, I friggin' knew it. I said last week with Jack and Victoria on my live stream for the A-Side Tips show that this just feels like a game that the Gold Coast Titans will bugger up in some way, shape or form. And yes, Latrell Mitchell wasn't exactly on the cards, even though he was named on the reserves. Latrell Mitchell came back and helped South Sydney get their first win in over 2 months or 3 months. And the Titans, sure, you can say that they got robbed again, but they did that one to themselves for sure. For the Gold Coast Titans lineup, so Fodder Waker is back in. Big Tino is back in. Haas, Campbell Gillard, Fa'asu Mala'awi, and Paxton Keanu Kinney has been named as 18th player as well. Philip Sammy is back in. Is that right? Tony Francis is also playing on the wings. So look, it's not a full strength lineup, and it is a little bit. It's not the projected 1-17 at the start of the season, but I'm giving the Titans every single chance this weekend. I really am. Ramian, he wasn't setting the world on fire, but it's still a big loss for them. Talakai and Hiroti up against Sammy and Fafita. I got to say I'd be taking Sammy and Jojo Fafita in that battle every single time. Kennedy versus Brimson. Based on the way of play of 2025, you probably back Kennedy in, but he's been coming in and out of form. And then Foran and Campbell versus Trindle and Hines. I mean, Jaden Campbell's maybe the most informed player of all of those four at the moment. The forward pack, I mean, it will be cool to see like an Aiden Fanua-Blake versus a Jamin Jolliffe, for example. Jolliffe has been super underrated in 2025 and has been throughout most of his career. I'm really flirting with the idea of tipping the Gold Coast Titans at $3 at 11. And you know what? I'm just looking at the interchange for the Sharkies. It's still massive. They got Jesse Colquhoun that's back in this weekend. I think the interchange is going to make me stick with the Sharks. Not going to be totally surprised if the Gold Coast Titans pick up a victory. But this is huge for the Sharks. Like, there's no excuses. You need to be merciless for 80 minutes against this Gold Coast Titans side that are at the bottom of the ladder. But still, are no easy beats. However, I'm going to tip the Sharks here. God, I want to tip the Titans. But Sharks, you've got to win this game. The second game on Super Saturday is from Suncorp. It's the battle for Brisbane. Broncos versus Dolphins. Broncos, they are $1.70. The Dolphins, they are $2.15. Let's get stuck straight into the team list here. So the halves pairing is Billy Walters and Ben Hunt. Karapani, Staggs, Shibasaki, and Mariner. They are the back, or part of the back five. And the forward pack, Corey Pakes starts at hooker. Gajewski, Ricky, and Carrigan are the back row. Interchange is Smoothie, Hetherington, Tolte, and Jaden Hunt, with Jesse Arthurs named as 18th player for the Dolphins. Jake Averillo plays at centre. Nikorima and Katoa still remain as the halves. Nafa, who remains on the wing. The forward pack is Nichols, Marshall King, and Tauha, Fenifuiaki, Keeley, and Donahue. The back row, the interchange is Stone, Lemuelu, Kerr, and Kenny Bromwich. Francis Molo is out due to suspension, and that's just about it for both of these sides. Broncos, I thought in a loss, that was their best performance in about 2 months, probably since before their loss to Manly about 2 months ago. I thought they were really, really brave and looked the better team. Even though they lost, I thought they looked the better team. That sounds strange to say, but I just thought that they looked like that they were heading for a victory, and then it just got pulled from them halfway through that first half. For the Dolphins, who knows what the hell happened there against the Roosters, suffering their worst loss in club history to date. It is 64 points to 12. It was 64 points to 12. Yeah, really, really disappointing from the Dolphins. This screams that the Dolphins will bounce back and pip the Brisbane Broncos. They did it last year, or maybe it was the year before. I think it was maybe last year, actually, where they ruined the Broncos' chances of featuring in the top 8. But Ben Hunt and Walters, they're good enough players to keep things afloat. I think the forward pack is better than the Dolphins. I think it's the forward pack of the Dolphins versus the halves combination of Nikorima and Katoa. If the Dolphins are to win, it is going to be because of Nikorima and Katoa. Broncos are going to win off of the back of a Ben Hunt 8 or 9 out of 10 performance, but also off the back of, you hate to rely on him too much, but off the back of Payne Haas and Pat Carrigan and Jordan Ricky. I think he had one of his better games of the year last weekend, and he's been pretty solid all year, actually, Jordan Ricky. Reece Walsh as well. That was a game that I don't think he truly got, with that the Broncos got the best out of. I don't think Walsh played to the best that he could have last weekend, but such was the nature of the contest, and you don't sort of blame him for that. But this weekend, Reece Walsh, I think, needs to be well and truly switched on. He needs to be activated from the get-go. So I'm going to tip the Brisbane Broncos to win this game 1-12. The final game on Super Saturday is from Allianz Stadium. South Sydney host the Parramatta Eels. Eels, they are $1.64. South Sydney, they are $2.26. Lachlan Hubner is out for the South Sydney Rabbitos. Shaq Mitchell, LeBlanc, Brandon Smith and Tom Fletcher, they are the interchange. Havili starts at prop. Namazulis and Kepi in the front row, and host Duncan and Arrow are in the back row. Humphreys and Ashton Ward are the halves pairing. Jai Gray, Johnston, Mitchell, Tass and Bentley Harpe are the back five. For the Parramatta Eels, it looks like Dylan Brown remains at centre, Hawkins and Moses as the halves pairing, and Isaiah Iongi has been named on the reserves, but by and large, Luca Moretti starts at lock, whereas Dylan Walker comes off the interchange. Okay. So South Sydney looks plucky. They got their first victory in about 3 months or thereabouts, and good on them. There were a couple of controversial calls, but also the Gold Coast Titans bottled it in the in goal for the Parramatta Eagles. They didn't look their best last weekend against the Cowboys, but it was still a pretty good quality game of footy in that 1 point victory against them. They got a couple of pieces back, don't they? South Sydney, they've got a couple of pieces back. Cody Walker has also been named on the reserve, so he might be a late inclusion. This one's a pretty hard game to tip. I guess I'm going to go the Parramatta Eels. That Brandon Smith off the interchange is a bit of a wild one, but I'm going to go the Parramatta Eels to win this game 1-12. There are two matches on Sunday, and Tigers versus Sea Eagles from Allianz Stadium kicks this off. It is the Tigers who are coming into the game and off the bye at $2.24. Manly Sea Eagles, they are $1.65. For the West Tigers, Alex Seyfarth is out. We've got Brent Naden floating around on the reserves for the Tigers, but we've got Dream Bullard, Taruva, May, Toa, Skelton, Luai, Duahi. So Luai and Duahi are the halves pairing. This weekend, May, Coruscant and Pole, Fainu, the Fainu brothers are two parts of the back row, and then Twal is the lock. Latu Fainu in jersey 14, Royce Hunt, Charlie Murray, Tony Sukkar. Okay, that's a pretty good lineup for the West Tigers. That's a pretty good lineup. For the Manly Sea Eagles, Hopper Wide returns. He is going to be playing on the wing. Turbo still at the back. Jazz Tavanga is in the lock because Jake Trebojevic is out due to concussion, wishing him all the best. And the interchange is Talal, Navale, Bullymore and Tofafoa Sipley. Ethan Bullymore proving his worth last weekend against the Raiders. He went absolutely off. Jake Simpkin is the hooker this weekend. This is a must-win game for Manly. Technically, the Tigers are still alive on a mathematical scale or lens, and they're playing the better footy at the moment. Coming off a bye, but also coming off a victory against the Bulldogs. I don't want to tip Manly. I just don't trust him. I don't trust him, so I'm going to tip the West Tigers in this game 1-12. The final game of round 24, North Queensland Cowboys versus the Newcastle Knights. The Cowboys $1.44. The Newcastle Knights, they're $2.82. This is the last game of round 24 on a Sunday afternoon in Townsville. And to think that this game, a Channel 9 affair, was booked in as soon as the draw was released last November, in hopes that these two teams would be sitting about the same they were last year. This is a rematch from their fantastic elimination final contest. It was an awesome game of footy, and to think that both these sides are sitting in the bottom four in 2025 is goddamn so disappointing, especially for the Channel 9 people that thought that this would be a good game to have on Sunday afternoon footy. For the North Queensland Cowboys, Semi Velame has number 2 on his back. Purdue, Laybart and Burns. The forward pack McLean returns. Interchanges Lawton, Edwards, O'Donnell and Thomas McKaylee looking into the Cowboys reserves here. Viliami Vailea, he was a late scratching. He was meant to return last weekend, but he's been named as 18th player. Bitungan has been is still floating around in the reserves. For the Newcastle Knights, there is a debutant, Connor Votano. He makes his debut in first grade this weekend at fullback. Dane Gagai reverts back to the centres. Jake Arthur and Jack Cocker are the halves. Saifidi, Brayley Thompson, the front row. Frizzell plays at lock. Matt Arthur, Matt Croker, Kant, and Brodie Jones bring up the interchange. Cowboys 13+. Howdy everyone, thank you very much for your continuous support. Sorry about how late this video is and if I might be a little bit energyless, but I think you all saw my post a little bit earlier, so thank you very much for the continuous support. Hope you enjoyed the video. Pass the time and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you. Take care. Adios.